Welcome to another episode of the Journey Management Playbook. This is by now episode number 6. If you somehow managed to get here without watching the previous episodes, make sure to check out the links that are down below in the show notes to get the full playlist. We're going to make some assumptions about the fact that you know what we're doing here and where we are coming from. We will repeat a few things, but not the full story. As in all the previous episodes, I am joined today by Ting Ting Lin from Daydo. Ting Ting, nice to see you back.
Nice to see you. Nice to see everyone.
The Journey Management Playbook continues. For anyone, like I said, who hasn't had the opportunity to watch all the 5 previous episodes, maybe you could give us like a very short, brief summary about what have we done so far and what is coming up today.
Of course. Let me briefly recap our previous episodes. So, in episode 1, we have defined the business challenge. We understand the importance of it, why we need to understand it in the beginning. And then in episode 2, we continue by understanding the qualitative and quantitative data. What are the key source of information we need to construct our journeys? And then we segue into episode 3, where we showed how AI can help you to generate a new journey and enrich an existing journey. Then we talked a little bit about on the journey level what kind of validation you need to do, because you cannot 100% relying on AI, and it's a collaboration. And talking about collaboration with AI, we then dived a little bit deeper in episode 4. We talked about how to verify and tag each of the insights generated and enriched by AI. So we make sure we are confident about the experience layer of our journey. And then in the last episode, episode 5, we actually covered structuring journeys and simplifying your lanes. So simplification is a key word. And we got a lot of feedback that, yes, this is what we need. And this is how we can make an action biased journey.
You mentioned a very interesting word there already, action biased journey. As a quick reminder, we are using an actual use case throughout all these episodes. We've taken me as a business owner who runs a community, which is basically a service that I offer towards in-house service design professionals. And one of the business challenges that we're trying to address is how do you increase retention of community members, and thus how do you reduce churn? So that is all the time the thing that's going through our minds when we are looking at the journeys. What we have right now is a very well grounded, like you said, validated, verified, tagged journey map. But for anyone who's been following so far, this map doesn't actually tell us yet now what. Like, what do we actually do about it? So it's a reflection of the current state, which is already super useful. But of course, we're not mapping for the sake of mapping. We are not making art here. We want to have an impact on my business in this case, and if you're listening, on your business. So we need to answer the question, like, what do we do with all this information? How do we move forward? And that is going to be like the prime focus of today's episode, right, Ting Ting?
Exactly. So in this episode, now that we understand insights and we have a well-structured journey, let's say, from the phases, steps, and lane point of view, and now we are finally digging deeper into opportunities and solutions. So these are the critical building blocks that will transform your journey mapping from a documentation exercise, like Mark just mentioned, into a driver of real business impact. And what does that mean? We finally go into the part of your business challenge about what we are doing about our business problem, right? So we talked so much about action bias, how to make our journeys bias on action based on data, how structure should be simple. But then today we're talking about the action itself.
And I think it's good to sort of point out that we are spending quite a lot of time in these episodes to go really in depth and show all the nuances, what cards mean. And this takes time. And we are doing that on purpose because we do want to go beyond the surface level explanations. But once you understand like all these dynamics and concepts and structures, you'll be able to move through this much, much more quickly than we are doing in these episodes. So right now, it takes a lot of time, but next time you do it, you hopefully already are very familiar with how all these elements work. So today, we are going to move into how do we actually make decisions based on our journey. As a quick reminder, there are timestamps in the show notes, so that if you want to fast forward to a specific moment or you want to go back to a specific moment, you can do that through the timestamps. We'll be doing a lot of screen sharing as in the previous episodes. If you are listening to the audio only version, then you can use the presentation that is accompanying this episode and watch the screenshots. But I think in overall sense, you'll get a better feeling of what we're doing if you're watching the video version. And the link to that is also in the show notes. Have I forgotten anything in the intro, Ting Ting?
Of course, leave a comment on YouTube or Spotify because we love your comments. We love these discussions. And on our LinkedIn as well. We'll share it everywhere.
Yeah. We love to hear from you. Your questions, comments, remarks in the comments. Now, okay, let's dive in. Opportunities and solutions. Two lanes that I think are sort of by default in the structure that Daydo offers. There is quite a lot to unpack about these two because they are important lanes. I am a business owner. I want customers to spend more time with me because that's better for them, hopefully, and that's better for me as a business owner. How do we look for opportunities and solutions that help me to improve my member retention and reduce my member churn? Ting Ting, where do we continue on that journey?
Yeah, let's actually take another look at what we have now, right? So we have done the research. We have come up with a journey and insights about how the member leaves the community circle. That's what we have right now. And we have the insights with the scores and we can prioritize them. That's great. However, with the current journey content, we can although we can already understand the membership experience, like I mentioned, experience layer of the journey, and it's with a solid foundation of research-based insights, but this is just the beginning. And now it's time to transform the understanding into action. So
Hold
in
on,
order
thinking.
to
So
do,
what we are
yeah,
looking at, just as a recap again, this is what you see when you look at one specific journey map inside Daydo. Lanes, cards, experience, graphs, metrics, tags. If you're not familiar with all these things, make sure to check out the previous episodes. But this is eventually what we have created in the previous episodes.
exactly. Thank you, Mark. And like I said, now it's time to transform this experience understanding into action. And how do we do that? So, in order to do that, we need more building blocks. Of course, we need the opportunities and solutions to drive the action. So, opportunities are the problems we review from those insights, and then we can ideate solution for each opportunity. So in this way, we can effective plan, decide, and track our actions. So these are the building blocks. You might also notice that they are really what teams outside of service design and CX care about. And
How so?
when you
Like, can you give an example?
yeah, when you look at them, the opportunities and solutions, especially the solutions, they are already part of day-to-day business of, for example, our product team, And they are prioritizing the solutions in other tools like Jira. They're tracking the progress of it. It's basically the main task they are focusing on. And these teams are not necessarily starting from a journey, or some of these teams never heard of a journey, but they're very familiar, they're expert in the solutions. And for the opportunities, we have the business leaders doing the strategic planning and doing the prioritization, although sometimes they might not call it opportunity, they would call it like objective and other words, but they are actually doing the problem synthesis, prioritization of the direction, and so on. So then this become much more interesting for various roles in the organization when we bring the opportunities and solutions into the picture.
Nice. Yep. I guess a lot of people are familiar with solutions because that's their day to day. That's the operational stuff. But this allows us to connect it back to what we know from our customers and the strategic objectives that we have as a business. Like that's the promise, at least, right?
Exactly. So this is the point for your business. If you are a business, you have these amount of dollar or euro to spend as an organization. And then you need to answer this question: how are we going to spend these money? And we are proposing the triple diamond workflow, as we already been talking about it in the previous episodes, because you cannot go around it when we talk about journey management. And then the triple diamond really give you a framework to make these decisions. So I can actually, now you are looking at a triple diamond workflow. So basically, it's an iterative approach. You can, it's although we call it a workflow, it's not a waterfall. So here we have the insights, opportunities, solutions in this workflow. However, you can start really anywhere. You can start, like Mark, you mentioned, like people are very familiar with their solutions. So you can start with the solution and trace back the reason, the rationality of the solution. Why am I developing this feature through the opportunities? And then you can further trace back to the journey and insights as a context to understand further your solution. So in that case, it's an excellent example how a developer or a product owner can explain to their team why are we developing this feature. So then the team can understand much better the rationality and the customer impact, so they can do better decision in the development and detailed design. So basically, this is the framework. It's not really a waterfall process to help you understand the different elements to in the collaboration to join different roles together.
One thing I really liked about what you say, and I couldn't agree more, is that our job as CX professionals, service design professionals, is eventually trying to help an organization to prioritize their investments, whether that's in money or time or energy or resources, and get the best bang for your buck. That's why we're here. Of course, we start with customers, but we are operating, at least in a commercial setting, in a context where a business needs to make money, and we are here to help them be more profitable. So this would be my call out to every CX professional, service design professional out there. Like, get that in your mind. We are here to help the bottom line of the organization, and that is also why we are doing this. So
yeah, it's all about return on investment, isn't it?
It is.
And
yeah.
Sometimes it's measurable with numbers, but sometimes it's also, let's remember, it's also about efficiency, better quality, these qualitative measurements, right? So the key value of journey management isn't in mapping the journey. That, I think, is understandable by now. And because mapping is just a starting point.
It's a means to an end. Yeah.
Exactly. It's how we organize and prioritize our work to know what will give us the highest return on investment.
And this also goes for public context. So this is not just for the capitalists out there, but if you are in a public sector space, you need to make sure that the money you get gets spent in the most effective and efficient way. And this helps there as well.
Exactly.
Okay, so that was a small rant, but I think an important one. I would suggest let's just dive in and look at those building blocks like you mentioned. You just showed in the triple diamond that you can basically start in any space. So in this case, I would say like, let's start with the top block. Let's look at opportunities. Is that a good idea, Ting Ting?
Yeah, indeed. We can look at opportunity. And I think this triple diamond workflow is a good way for us to understand where are everything located, right? So first, I think in my experience, many people have a question. Why do we separate opportunity and solution in the first place? So I think it's worthwhile spending some time discussing about it. So
yeah, it's very intuitive to say, okay, we have an insight. I don't know, people don't know how to update their credit card details. The solution is we need to create a presentation or a video that explains how to do that. Like, come on, Ting Ting, we know what to do. Like, let's go to the solution. But you're saying, hold on, we need to look at opportunities first.
Yeah, and use the language of service design or design in general. I think designers understand we need to separate the problem space with the solution space. But why? So let's go back to this triple diamond. And for the people who are listening, it actually starts with a diamond of problem discovery. And then we go into the solution discovery, and then we go into the solution delivery. So that's the triple diamond concept. And then opportunity locates at the output of the first diamond. So that is the problem discovery. And then it also acts as input for the second diamond. So that is the solution discovery. And with this understanding, opportunities are basically problem statements. But then we flip it into the positive side. Why do we do this? Because if we're too fixated on with a solution without understanding the problem in depth, we miss out on many ideas for solutions. So that's why we need to separate the problem space with the solution space, because they're not the same thing. The problem, the opportunity, is a synthesis of your understanding of the experience, of the research. It doesn't directly point to any specific solution. And we are doing so because we want to ideate many possible solutions so we can prioritize them.
Okay, Ting Ting, that's a bold statement that you're making there. I want to see some proof, because people might say, design challenge. Come on, we already know what the solution is. This is just slowing us down. Like, why should we create an opportunity statement? Like, let's just build stuff. So, can you give me a convincing example where it's helpful to look at an opportunity first?
Yeah, for sure. So let's then still go back to the same journey we have been working on, and let's go to check the highest scored insight. So that is here under the membership decision.
Okay,
right?
So quick reminder, highest scored, what do you mean with that?
Highest scored, it means AI will automatically generate a score in the insights based on the reliability and impact. So we have discussed about it, I think, in episode 3 and episode 4. So make sure to go back and check if you forgot about the rationale.
So this is the most impactful insight according to the data.
Exactly.
Okay.
So we have then during the membership pausing or canceling this step, we have seen, okay, this membership cancellation reasons as one of the most important pain points. And then it also inside the insight itself, it it told us several key points and why do members canceling their community membership. So we can see that a lot of these reasons are really not about our community service, but about the members' own time limitation, their workload, their change of like health and personal issues, and so on. So this tell us like if we are trying to find one solution for this, it might be very, very difficult. But then we can certainly understand the problem itself. When we look at all these insights, it means it might be a mismatch with or misfit with our community activity. So then in this case, we should understand the problem is not from our service quality point of view, but rather we didn't find the right fit, right? So then in this case, we come up with an opportunity called how might we find out if there is a mutual fit?
Mutual between who and who?
Between Mark and the
Yes.
community,
Uh-huh.
between the community circle and the community member, of course. So this is something we learned from the data from the insight itself without going into a concrete solution. But then further, because we understand, okay, a mutual fit is a problem and finding a mutual fit is an opportunity, then we can go brainstorm the solutions. For example, here we find two solutions. We can have qualification call with Mark, and we can find community guideline. We can use a community guideline email for everyone to be aligned.
So if I sort of try to translate this into my own language, if we wouldn't look at opportunities first in this example and we would jump to solutions, one might say, okay, people are canceling. Let's look at how let's make the membership cheaper. Like that could be a solution. But if we do that, we might figure out that price isn't the only or the most important reason. And then we have implemented a solution that doesn't actually address the pain point, right?
Yeah, at least for this one.
At least for that one. So what we want is we want to, like you said in this example, find out if there's a mutual fit, and finances could be part of that conversation, but also time investment and background and sort of the goals and desires that somebody has. And from that opportunity statement, a lot of other solutions could potentially emerge that are more relevant. Is that a good summary?
Yeah, I think so. And it also goes back to your question, what does it mean by a mutual fit, right? So the insights will tell you what are not fitting at the moment. Then you can focus your definition through these data. But then this understanding also help you to design the solution itself. For example, during the qualification call, what kind of questions you can actually ask, and then the email of community rules, what should it include, right? So with this logic chain from insights to opportunity to solution, it helps you to be more comprehensive to solve the right problem.
Okay. One thing we stepped over really quickly, but I think is really important, is you already had this statement, the how might we statement, find out if there is a mutual fit. How did you get to that statement? How do we figure out what we actually need to write in our opportunity?
That's a really good question. So, with They Do, of course, you can kickstart your opportunity by trying to review your opportunity based on your insight through the AI. So, when we review opportunity, we can try to do it here. AI will read all the insights from the step and then come up with some statement of opportunity. For example, now I
So hold
just
on, hold on.
reviewed.
So what we're seeing now on screen thinking is another card in our opportunities lane, and this card has, in real time while we are talking, been added by AI because it was analyzing the insights from that specific moment in the journey.
Yes, exactly. So when we open this opportunity reviewed by AI, we can actually see the AI has summarized the insights itself and summarized the problem, of course, about why it matters, the big picture, the key point, the bottom line, and next steps. But more importantly, it automatically linked to the insights it's addressing. So in this case, AI reviewed the insights called "How might we reduce a barrier for member to re-engage after pausing or canceling?" Well, this is
That's actually a good
another,
insight.
yeah,
A good
another aspect.
opportunity. Yeah.
So it is like again, by collaborating with AI and human, we are probably able to find the problem more comprehensively. On one hand, maybe in a workshop, Mark, you have come up with this opportunity. How might we find out there's a mutual fit? Because you, together with a team, checked all these opportunities, discussed it. Checked all these insights from research, discussed it in the journey context, and according to your own experience engaging with the community, then you come up with one opportunity about mutual fit. And then if you use AI might give you some complementary opportunities. Sometimes they're repeating. So you can always try to review opportunity with AI and see whether this has additional insights for you. And another point is when we are having this kind of opportunity review bottom up from the research data, we shouldn't always look at the insights in the same step. We should actually try to understand the whole journey and see where we also see other insights in the journey or even across different journeys that can lead to the same opportunity. So in that case, in that way, it is more comprehensive and it is more it is a higher level and more prominent problem statement for our business.
Mhm.
Yeah. So this is a bottom up way that I just mentioned. You can do it with AI, you can do it with workshops based on the data. But then, in addition to that, you also need to make sure these opportunities you review from the data are fitting into the high level goals or targets or directions your company have from strategic point of view.
And how do we do
So
that?
yeah. So usually, companies would have this strategic sessions in the beginning of the year or each quarter to come up with the directions for the company. Usually, there are strategic statement and so on. So these statements are, of course, based on the leadership's understanding on the market, on the company performance, and totally from business point of view. Sometimes they're not taking the journeys into consideration. But then this is also an opportunity we can use journeys to impact the strategy. In a way, we can link these strategic statement into our journeys. For example, for Mark's community, now I'm making this up, Mark. This might not be aligned with your objective, but for example, this year we want to focus on providing confirmation and reassurance for our members because of our experience from last year, because we want more retention of the members, right? So we can actually map this objective into all the journeys and all the steps. We can also extend it across the different steps if it's relevant for different steps. And then, whenever we come up with a bottom up opportunity, we should test it against these strategic one or multiple strategic objectives. We can see, okay, how might we find out if there's a mutual fit? or how might we reduce barrier for member to engage with us, to re-engage with us? And does it contribute to our objective to provide confirmation and reassurance? On one hand, we can see, okay, the fit between the member and the community is for sure confirmation and reassurance. And on the other hand, our opportunity about re-engagement for members after pausing or canceling, well, it might also contribute to this if we have some good solutions to provide the more emotional reassurance. They might come back to us. So we can then link these two opportunities under this strategic objective. And then the benefit of this is, on one hand, we can assess our opportunity whether they are relevant for the business, because you can reject them if they are not relevant, at least for this year's objective, right? On the other hand, when we link our opportunity towards the strategic objective, we are also able to track the progress of so on the other hand, when we link our how might we or bottom-up opportunity towards the strategic objectives, we are also able to track the progress of this opportunity itself through the linking, because then the children opportunities status will contribute to the progress bar of the parent opportunity.
But then we are already getting very fancy and talking about using journeys as a workflow management tool and project tracking tool, and we'll get into that in next episodes. Okay, awesome that you've shown this. While you were explaining this, my mind sort of wandered off and told me, man, sometimes I'm just very lazy, or I don't have time to think about opportunities. What if I would just say that my opportunity is, how might we prevent members from canceling? Like, would that be an interesting opportunity? Like, just reformulate the pain point?
Yeah. So there are several actually pitfalls. How are people cheating with opportunity statements, so to say? So one is exactly what you said. They just rephrase the customer insights into opportunity. So, for example,
why is that cheating?
That's cheating because it's not adding too much value to the original insight. And this opportunity is too narrow and too fixated to one pain, instead of looking across and try to solve more pains more broadly.
How broad do we need to get?
Well, at least we need to have an opportunity that is able to either solve a big pain like this compared to other, or it connects across different steps and different journeys, so it's prominent for your business. So make sure an opportunity is solving an important problem rather than just a little tiny detail.
Okay, but in this case, like, how can we prevent members from canceling? That is spans across multiple steps, spans even across multiple journeys. It has a big impact on me as a business. Like, why wouldn't that qualify as a valid opportunity? Or is it?
Maybe it is then in this case, because if your member is canceling and you understand the various cancellation reasons from the different journeys, different steps, so it's not only one pain, it's multiple pains. Like, although in this case, member cancellation reasons as one pain, if you open it, it actually have a lot of quotes, then you can understand it is not only one member saying something, and it has different aspects as well. So this can be an opportunity to include a lot of different reasons. So this could be a good opportunity. But then, for example, if you have a smaller insight with just a few quotes, For example, if some member is confused about updating credit card details, like that is a much more narrow pain than member cancellation reason. And then if you formulate the opportunity as how can we make it easier to update credit card details, then it is kind of only addressing a detail without going deeper into understanding what are the real problems.
But that is a
right?
balancing act because someone might say, okay, we need to improve the UX UI of our website. Somebody else might say we need to have an instruction video. Somebody else might say, let's remove the credit card details in general. So still, you could end up moving in different directions there, right?
Exactly. And one problem is you are getting like too general as well. If you say like, oh, how can we solve our churn problem? Then you don't know how to measure it. You don't know where do I have to understand the problem, where do I need to insert the solution, and so on. It's just too broad. So it need to be specific. It need to be in certain level of depth, and they cannot be too open, generic. So it's indeed, like you said, it's a balancing act.
And what about recently in my circle community, we've been using AI to create more value in the community to help members with their jobs to be done. Would it be an opportunity if I said, how might we use AI to create more value for community members? Is that a good opportunity?
Yeah, so this is a very common cheating again.
Am I cheating again? Gosh.
You're not the only one. This is very, very common pitfall when people insert certain technology into a so-called opportunity. For example, how can we use AI to address this particular need and so on? When you insert a specific technology, it is usually a solution. It's not a problem anymore.
But I don't yet know how I will use AI. So how is that a solution?
Because you need to understand, why are you even thinking of using AI?
Mm.
What kind of problem are you going to solve with AI? Because once you understand the problem, you might be able to come up with other solutions as alternatives or even as complementary solution to this initial solution you're thinking about. It gives you much more possibilities to ideate, to prioritize, and make the best decision.
But thinking, my CEO told me that we are an AI first company and we need to use AI, so that is a strategic objective.
Yeah. So this is also very common in my experience across the companies. So on one hand, the technology trend is also guiding our strategic direction, and that's okay. And for example, in the digital transformation, we want to focus on digital, but then we should always understand, why do we need to do that? And that's also the leadership's job, to explain to the employees, why should we focus on one technology over the other. So
Good
because
luck with that conversation.
during the strategic discussion, it should also be grounded in not only the market trend, but also in own customer data. So I would say it is also an opportunity for the CX and service design professionals to also influence this kind of strategic discussion. For example, if our research shows that, okay, we have a lot of support issues, and then we have a strategic objective like using AI, let's say, to be more efficient with the operation and support. And that is actually quite fitting. But then we should take a step forward and ask more. So, what kind of support issues can AI solve? And what kind of support issues AI cannot solve? So, for example, for those recurrent questions, AI can really help a lot to accelerate the resolution and to give more to influence and help the customers to be more successful and satisfied. But on the other hand, if we look at those specific questions that you don't have documentation, it needs multiple roles in your organization to solve the question, AI might not be the good solution. So it might need a better process in the collaboration internally between the engineering team and support team, for example. So that's something maybe AI cannot help that much. It can help probably in part of it, but not all of it. So then understanding the problem help us to be more comprehensive.
Okay. Opportunities, they are a balancing act. Getting them right just takes some practice and iterate and see, debate, use AI to figure out what opportunity detail level works for you. Another question that came up for me was, as service design professionals, or CX professionals, we most likely will not be the ones implementing the eventual solution. So, um, like, who are we writing these opportunities for? Like, is it for ourselves, or like, are we writing them for other stakeholders in the organization? What is your experience?
Yeah, that's a really good point. And as I mentioned in the beginning, when we talk about opportunity and solution, it start to involve more other stakeholders than the CX and service design team. So I would even take a step forward and say the opportunities are sometimes are not even written by the CX and service design team, but you're facilitating with these different stakeholders and different roles to come up with the best opportunity based on the journey and research you have prepared for them. So you of course need to understand who need to look at these opportunity, when do they need them, and what type of filtering do they need to retain the focus to their work.
How does this work? Because I'm going to assume that everyone around me is already super busy. They already have their roadmaps, they already have their budgets, they already have their timelines. Like, when do they look at the journey map and start thinking about opportunities with us?
Yeah, and the when question is exactly encouraging our CX and service design professionals to take a look at what these other stakeholders are working on. How are they doing their day to day work? How do they do their planning, prioritization? What are the processes they're following? So, understanding how work is being done in your organization is key to integrate journey management into your existing process and to involve your stakeholders much easier. Because if you have a parallel workflow and suddenly as a meeting for all these stakeholders to come up with opportunities and solutions, they might feel, why am I doing this? We are already prioritizing our solutions every quarter in our quarterly planning. We are having our strategic planning in the beginning of the year. Why do we need to have another additional meeting? And that's an excellent point, because instead of adding a parallel workflow and ceremonies, you can actually add agenda into their existing meeting. You can add value, and then they can understand, okay, instead of adding 2 hours of work to my day to day, I actually get value from just referring and collaborating with you, leveraging your work to be more rationalized in my prioritization and decision making. Then you will get much more motivation from these different stakeholders.
I'm curious if you've also seen, and this is maybe also cheating, but instead of trying to extract opportunities from insights, you actually go into the organization and start asking people, what are you working on, and like, what is the opportunity that you're chasing right now? and then you sort of try to see, okay, where does that fit into a journey, into the journey, and you give it a place, and then you start again reverse engineering from bottom up, from the work that's actually already being done and prioritized. Have you seen examples of that?
This is not cheating. This
Good.
is a very good way of working, actually. So instead of doing everything from scratch, looking at the existing planning, the existing solution, even can help you a lot in engaging these stakeholders. For example, if you reverse engineer their quarterly planning material into the journeys, they might be able to see, okay, so we are over planning this particular step and we are ignoring the other steps. So then they could have a discussion, is it a conscious decision? If it is, so it's okay because we can then maybe fill up the gaps in the next quarter. And then in the next quarter, they might be more interested to start from the journey itself, right? And then from solution point of view, it's even more important when you, before you come up with an opportunity, you should actually take a look at existing solutions. Because if you don't know what is existing, how are you able to understand the gap and the problem itself, right? So, like I said, in the triple diamond, it's not like one directional. You can start anywhere, and it's reverse engineering, but it's encouraged as well because journeys and insights will provide rationality and context at any moment of time, and we believe it generates value at different moments of the decision making for different stakeholders.
That's an interesting discussion to have inside the organization. Like when you come up with the journey and you say, okay, we found an insight that is related to member cancellation, you could try asking around, are we already taking action on this? Is somebody already working on this? Is this somewhere on the roadmap?
Exactly.
Are there budgets around? And that gives you an interesting excuse to have these conversations with people next to you, but also people above and below you in the organization.
Exactly. And then when you get people connected, they will be delighted. Oh, my plan already addressed an important customer problem. Then they will be more motivated to implement this plan. And if they don't, they have a solution they're very fixated about, but they don't find the rationality in the data, maybe they will think twice as well.
Okay, I feel thinking we have there is much more to say about opportunities. I hope we have made the case for why it's important to look at opportunities. If you had to briefly summarize, like opportunities, what are they about before we move into solutions?
Of course. So opportunities, again, in the triple diamond, they are the problem space. They are the problem statements to synthesize your understanding from the journeys and insights, and they are the input for your solution discovery so that you can have a much more comprehensive understanding of the problem before jumping into the solutions. So these are the opportunities.
Nice. Okay. Let's not forget that we also have solution blocks. That is where the rubber hits the road, where we are actually going to do stuff in the physical or digital world to hopefully get us closer to the strategic objectives and goals that we are chasing. Can you help us out and tell us a little bit more about the solution block?
Yeah. So now that we understand opportunity, what are the solutions? Well, everybody knows what are the solutions because most people are already working on the solutions. And solutions are about turning your understanding of opportunities into action, of course. But then one important thing to understand is, what is a solution? I said everyone is working on a solution, and maybe people don't agree. People will say, oh, no, I'm not working in IT or digital team. I'm not working in Jira. I'm not working with any features. So why am I working on a solution as well?
Who would say
Because
that? Like, who? Give us an example. Who would say that they are not working on a solution?
an example is, for example, in the marketing team, They would say, yeah, we have a process of how do we engage with our prospects early or find those prospects. And it's not a solution. Well, yeah, we are using the different tools, but this is not the solution we develop, right? So people often think this kind of processes are journeys rather than solutions. And I have a lot of questions from customer. How can I map these internal journeys into they do?
Internal
But
journeys? Like what?
like a process. So usually the first thing I need to encourage them to think about is it really a journey? Because there is employee experience journey for sure, but then we still need to distinguish between a process and a journey
Okay, so
because they
yeah,
have
yeah. I think let's see if I can make this tangible. So, for instance, a member of my community, is ready to cancel, and then I have some steps that I take to make sure that the offboarding experience is as smooth and aligns with the brand values of my circle community. I don't know. I email them, I help them out, I reach out a few times. That is, you could call that a workflow, a process, and you say that people are trying to map the steps. For instance, in this offboarding process that I take internally, they try to map them as a journey. Is that correct?
Yeah, the mapping is correct, and this is the process is necessary. It's also correct, but I would argue these processes are not a journey, but rather a solution.
And the
So
solution in this case would be have a proper offboarding workflow, right?
yeah, or the task distribution and task management across our team members. So which person does what? Who sends out the email? Who will make a call? And yeah, what is the sequence of all
So
these
how
tasks?
Okay, but how specific do we need to get in our solutions in the journey? Do we need to say send out an email, call them, reach out after 2 days? Those are going to be a lot of steps and blocks in our journey. Do we need to
Yeah,
get that
and
specific?
not only a lot of steps and blocks, it has a lot of different paths, it has different sequences and different conditions and so on. So a journey is not the best place to map all these complexities. And we have better tools like BBMN, like the process mapping tool, or even Mirror, they're better in visualizing these processes. So I would suggest that you can model these processes also as a solution, and you can just package them as a solution module called offboarding process.
Okay.
And or improving, how might we improve the offboarding experience? That could be an opportunity, and one solution is improve our offboarding process. So you can either model the whole process as a solution and see whether it is already live but has problem, then you can revert it back to improvement, or you can only model the improvement part as a solution, like improve our existing process. That can be linked to a process mapping outside of they do. And then you do the work of improvement outside and just track the status in they do. So when we talk about this, we understand, okay, this is much similar to a solution like a Jira ticket. You create it, you describe it, but then you work elsewhere, like create a feature, improve a feature, and then you track the progress of it. And sometimes it's important to understand you need multiple type of solutions to address the same problem, like this offboarding problem. One thing, you need to update the process. And then the other thing is you need to probably improve your wording, your text in the email, adding some images and so on. So that's the content part of it. And then if you want to automate this process, you probably want to implement some feature of automation to make it more efficient, incorporating this whole process and content to deliver to your customers.
But
so then you have
yeah.
three different solutions for the same problem.
Okay, so you would say improving the content around offboarding is a solution.
Yeah, improve the content
Uh-huh.
of the email.
Okay.
Then we have improved the business process of offboarding or review the process. And then we have automation as a digital solution.
Why not say just implement a better offboarding experience? And then sort of move that. Like what I'm trying to figure out is are solutions sort of project based with a start and end date? Because if they are, and I'm curious to hear your experience, then in my case, I would move them to my project management tool and just create a new project with all kinds of steps and links to responsibilities and roles. But in my project management tool, this would be, again, a project with a title called Improve the Offboarding Automation, for instance.
Yeah, that is about the granularity of the solution. You're very right. And in They Do, of course, you can have solutions on different levels as well. Just like in Jira, you can have epic, story, tasks, and so on different hierarchical levels. In They Do, you can also have different levels. Like you can have a parent solution called implement the new offboarding experience. But that doesn't tell you much. It's just a project, like you mentioned. But then inside of it, you can link multiple children solutions to it. Like, these different type of solutions that make it concrete and easy to track.
Can you show us in They Do actually what a solution block looks like? Because we haven't taken a look yet, and we do have some solutions already written down. I don't know if they actually still make sense, but let's have a look.
Yeah. So we have two places in this journey where we have a solution. One is under engaging in community. So when we look at the solutions, we have three solutions: a video to explain how the water cooler works and what is expected from the community member, think about the topics you'd like to bring into the upcoming water cooler, tell the story of dinner tables, and share what makes a good host. These are very concrete, even with the metaphors and stories there, so they qualify as good solution. And we have different types of the solution. Like this one is a guide, this one is a task, and this one is a handbook, and so on. So these are the types Mark has created as standard types in the community circle, so that different team members can understand, okay, which one is my responsibility, and then they can update the status as they implement these solutions.
Can you open one of these solutions?
Of course.
And then type, like how do we define type of a solution? Like I don't know. What are types?
Like I mentioned, the most common types are really the digital features, the business processes, and content. But then in different organizations, of course, you can have much more like special types that is contextualized in your organization. Like in this case, Mark has the content process, digital feature as well, but he also has experiments, also has value proposition guides, tasks, handbooks, and so on.
And thinking, is this, again, we've discussed this many times in the previous episodes, but does it help to think about these tasks by thinking about filtering? So at some point, someone will look at this journey map and they don't want to see everything. They want to see things that are relevant to them. And when you think about these solutions, you could think, okay, who needs to look at the solutions and what information are they interested about? So in this case, you might have a IT team who is interested in just the digital features or digital solutions, or you might have a content marketing team that is just interested in solutions related to content. Like, is that a helpful way to figure out which types of solutions you need?
Yeah, I think that's a very good aspect of it. Like, especially if you have clear responsibility of different teams, they can be part of defining these different types. And of course, sometimes their responsibility overlap, but then it's an opportunity for collaboration,
Mm.
right? But by defining these types, you're actually able to filter on the journey level. Like, for example, Bruno is the lead of the handbook. So in the journey, there are a lot of solutions, usually not only three like here. And Bruno come to this journey and want to see which steps contain solutions regarding handbook. So he can go to the filter and he can go to the solution filter and just filter by the handbook. And if he does so, then we can see the journey with only the solutions with the handbook. And now I should clear all the other filters. And
Yeah.
that's why it's not
Yeah.
really working.
No, but yeah, this is
Yeah.
the filtering as we've seen it in the previous episodes. Yeah. Would
Yeah.
you?
So now
Yeah.
you see.
I can imagine that people have like endless discussions about which types they need at the start, and then would you maybe recommend don't assign types initially and just like wait till somebody needs to filter them before figuring out which types you need?
That's about the stakeholder discussion again.
Hmm.
So, first, you need to understand who will own the solution, who need to take a look at the solution, take a look at the context of the solution, right? And and then you can discuss with them what aspects do they need in the filtering in the focus of their work. Then you can have an initial idea what kind of taxonomy, not only the types but tags, do you need in your organization. Implement that first and then add to it later. Don't try to make it perfect because that will take years, and then later on it might become irrelevant again because things change so fast. So focus on the essentials, focus on the scope of the stakeholders and project to come up with these types, statuses, and other tags rather than try to include everything.
Yeah. Cool. One thing I'm seeing in the solutions as well, and we'll probably save that for our next episode, is that there is, let's call it a tag called needs review and live. So that's the status. That sounds really helpful. And again, without going into too much detail, because that is our workflow episode, how do we define these statuses? What are they?
Yeah, so the statuses, like you mentioned, it's reflecting our workflow from different aspects. You can have a status flow for all the building blocks for journeys, insights, opportunities, and solutions. So each of these can have their specific workflow. And I think it's particularly meaningful when you talk about other stakeholders. You should take a look at what are their existing workflows, especially for the solutions. For example, we can integrate the solutions to tools like Jira, Azure DevOps. Then you should understand what are the existing solution workflow there. Like for the Jira epics, for the Jira stories, what are the solution tags in Jira? So you probably can just copy paste these for people to be more familiarized and to be more motivated to work with you instead of making another system from scratch. Because they are the experts, they will own and push the solution forward. But then for those building blocks like journeys and insights, if they're owned by the research, by the design team, by the core team, let's say, then you can take a look at your existing workflow and see whether this makes sense to be implemented in they do as well. So it's basically the same. Don't start from scratch. Take a look at what's good in the existing workflow and implement it.
Okay. And one final question about the solution is that there is also a progress bar. How does that work?
So the progress bar is essentially driven by the status. So when it's live, then it's 100% for this solution, of course. And then we have other solutions like needs review. So if you define in the taxonomy, needs review means it's still new and zero progress is done there, then it's zero. But you can also define in the taxonomy what kind of percentage does each status tag mean. And with those, like I mentioned, you are actually able to link the solutions to the opportunities. And let's take a look at one of them. So in this opportunity, we have one solution, which is a tell the story of the dinner table. And this solution is live. So that's why it's also pushing the opportunity as 100%. But then if we add another solution with the video, well, now it doesn't make sense, but I just show you for the sake of the progress bar. Now you see this solution has zero progress. And then we have two solutions. One is live, the other one is still zero. So eventually the opportunity is 50%. So that's also why it is really beneficial to have these linkages between opportunities and solutions so that you can automate the progress and collaborate based on your status. So not everyone need to update the status because the children's building blocks status will push the parent's building block.
And this is going to be really interesting because in this way you'll be able to see progress over time in your journey. Like, which opportunities are progressing, which ones are stalled, which solutions have we implemented, what are we trying, how does this impact our metrics? So you'll get a historical perspective and plan of how you're doing, right?
Yeah, and as a leader, for example, you don't need to do much because everybody's work actually leads to the progress of the strategic objective. And because we have linked these opportunities under the strategic objective, if you remember, we said top-down validation of our opportunity, then we're also able to see the progress bar of each strategic objective.
So this is really interesting because the journey helps people who are on the operational side and working on solutions to understand why are they relevant, why are we doing this, why are they prioritized. So it gives meaning and context to the work that they are doing. On the other end of the spectrum is that from people who are on a strategic level and looking at journeys, it gives them a dashboard of the progress that's being made without necessarily getting into those solutions, even though they could. So it both acts as a high-level dashboard and it acts as a very operational dashboard. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. You can also create different views for different stakeholders.
Exactly.
And you can have different ceremonies with different stakeholders. But that's then a teaser for our next episode about the workflow and stakeholder collaboration.
All right. Okay. Enough teasers. Let's bring everything together. This episode, our promise here was that we are going to answer the so what question. It's great that we have mapped insights and that we have data from our customers, but we still don't know what to do about it. Now we've shown that opportunities and solutions are the answer to the so what question. How would you summarize this episode, Ting Ting?
So just to summarize, opportunities and solutions, they enable us to move from mapping journeys to manage journeys and to involve much more stakeholders' roles with a focus on continuous improvement and measurable outcome. So they help avoid the trap of over documentation and keep the focus on the action itself and impact itself, not just analysis, right? So specifically, opportunities and solutions bring better resource allocation. So then the leadership will know where to invest more time and money for highest ROI, and how is everything progressing, because they can also help us in tracking the progress to see what's working and iterate quickly. And then for the cross-functional collaboration, we can provide a common language and structure for them through opportunity and solution. And then with these strategic conversation and meaningful work from different levels of the organization, we can bring data-driven progress and input to business strategy, and also allow the team to understand how their work has contributed to customer and business value.
That's a lot with just 2 building blocks, but it's of course not just the 2 building blocks. It's all the work that we've done before this. Now, one might wonder, we have finished all the elements in the journey. We've added them. We're done, right? Or is there still something left?
Actually, I have given teaser to the next episode, so there will be a next episode. So we will focus on the collaboration and workflow itself, how to make this sustainable across teams, establish ceremonies to keep journeys alive, and create the organization processes that make journey management successful at scale.
I know that is a huge pain point, challenge, struggle, because it's quite easy to create a journey. It's really hard to start using them in your day-to-day operation and keep them updated. So that is like the promise of the next episode. Awesome. Ting Ting, thank you so much again for guiding us through this. Quick reminder, if you do have comments, questions, feedback, we'd love to know from you. If you're watching on YouTube, you can leave a comment over there. If you're listening on Spotify, you can also leave a comment on Spotify. If you're listening somewhere else, make sure to reach out to us on LinkedIn, because we'll be available there to sort of answer your questions or include them in the next episode. Ting Ting, thank you so much. Is there anything else that you'd like to say or share before we wrap this episode up?
I think we've said a lot. So I would just say stay tuned for the next episode and really start thinking about the action itself.
Stay tuned. Thanks again, Ting Ting.
Thank you. Bye-bye.